If you're building web applications, especially ones where you have users who are registering and logging in, and maybe users who are inviting other users into the app, eventually you're going to need an admin dashboard interface. What I mean by that is a special area that is only accessible to you as the owner of the app or owner of the product, or maybe just a few people on the administrative team who is managing the application. Now, I'm not talking about the dashboard that users see when they're logged into their accounts. I'm talking about a special admin dashboard. So I've spun up a demo app on Ruby on Rails, and of course, I'm using my instrumental components library. So I'm going to log into my account. So right now, I'm logged in as bc@test.com. This is my account, and it's just a demo app. It doesn't have much content here, but I did put some text here on the home screen of the account to show me which account am I looking at. And I can see now that I am looking at the account called BC, and this is my username or email. I can see that it's owned by that. Okay, so I have already set myself as the admin, so I get this special link down here in the bottom of my user menu. I can click that, and it takes me into this admin dashboard. This is a special dashboard. As you can see, it's actually a different color scheme than the rest of the app. And here I could actually see the list of users who have registered for my app. So there's myself. And then, of course, I can see these other users. So, for example, if I look at this one, here are all the details about this particular user. They haven't set their first name and last name yet. There's their email. I can see when they registered, and I can see if they had logged in recently. This person has not. And I can see if this person owns any accounts. And it looks like this one has one account, and it's named, using the name of their email address. I'm going to click that, and that's actually going to take me over to my accounts area. So my admin dashboard also has a list of all of the accounts that have been created. If you saw my other video where I talked about users and accounts and teams and how I organize all those models and relationships, I think it's a really important one. It's a really important structure, again, like separating users from accounts. So here are my users in my application, and then these are the accounts that they belong to. Anyway, here's that account called CastJam Test, and I can see here who is the owner of this account. That's that user I was just looking at, and I can click that to get back to the user. And I can see how many team members belong to this account. And I've got this little drop down here, which lists those out. And then I can go to this other user. And I can see that this person actually has two accounts. So down here, if I look at their accounts, they are a team member in this one, and they have opened up their own account here. So first and foremost, it's a way for me to see the list of users and see the list of accounts that are in my application. Now, once I install the billing component from Instrumental and I'm managing products and purchases and subscriptions, that too is all going to be managed here in the admin. But for this demo app, it's just users and accounts right now. Now, there's one more really important element to having an admin dashboard, and this is probably the thing that I tend to use my admin dashboards the most for, and that is impersonating users, or otherwise known as masquerading as users, right? This is really helpful when you're doing customer support for the users or customers in your application. Sometimes somebody reports an issue in their account, and you or your customer support team needs to be able to go into your admin dashboard, find that user, and then click this button, impersonate user. So when I click that, it's going to now take me into the application homepage, except now I'm not looking at my own account anymore. Now I'm looking at the account that is owned by this user. And I can see that the content on the homepage has changed. I can see that we're viewing the account owned by that user. And now I can, go everywhere throughout my application. I can even look at the user's personal profile and see what all of their settings are here. And I can just inspect all the different details and settings that they might be seeing, especially if they're reporting a particular bug that's only visible inside their account and it's not visible across everyone's account. Now, the other thing that you'll notice here is this little widget down at the bottom. This tells me as the admin, hey, you are impersonating this user. This is their username or email address. And so that sort of just reminds me that like right now I'm not viewing the app as myself. I'm viewing it as this person. And then when I'm done, all I need to do is click this button to stop impersonating. And it's going to take me right back into my admin dashboard. I'm viewing that user's profile again, and I'm back to normal. So now I can click back to app, and that's just going to take me right back into my own account. And here it is. Okay, so now that I showed you how my admin dashboard works, I tore it all down, and I'm going to start all over from scratch and show you how I put it together, especially showing you how fast and easy that is using instrumental components. So let's fire up a new app. All right, I'm going to do Rails new, except I have a special alias for that to make this easier. Okay, so I have my new app up and running. All it says is hello world. I just have a basic page there. I basically added nothing else. And I always start off my new apps by adding the Rails 8 authentication generator. And I have a whole video that covers exactly how that works. Rails G authentication. And we'll want to run those migrations. Okay, the other thing I always do with my new apps is install active storage and action text. And I'll run those migrations. Okay, so we've got a basic vanilla Rails application with basically nothing else added except for the Rails 8 authentication. I did install Rails with Tailwind in the Rails new command. That's Tailwind version 4. All right, so now let's start using instrumental components. Now you can get your copy of it at instrumental.dev, and you'll find all of the documentation on how it all works in your account at instrumental.dev. So, some details might be a little bit different by the time you're watching this video, but for the most part, it's all there. So I usually like to start off my new applications by adding instrumental authentication. So this is like a layer on top of the Rails 8 authentication that came with Rails. This gives you all the views. This gives you a registration flow and the user profile and time zones and avatars and all that. So all that is like wrapped up into our authentication generator. So let's do Rails instrumental authentication. And that's also going to install our default layout into the application. We have a choice between which icons library we want to use. I'm going to use Font Awesome, and I'm going to put my Font Awesome kit ID. I could have done like hero icons, which doesn't need a kit ID, but anyway. All right, so that's done, and it has some migrations to run. So much nicer authentication view, and we've got a sign up view. We even have some like social proof here. Cool. All right, so before I start registering for accounts on my new application, I'm going to run another instrumental command, this time to install the accounts system. And this is the way for users to, after they sign up, it's going to create an account and an account user. And it adds the whole system for users to be able to invite other users into their accounts, like teams. And I have another entire video that walks through the accounts and team invitations model and how that's all designed and how it's put together. I actually just recorded it last week, so you can take a look at that after this one. Let's go ahead and get that installed. So Rails instrumental teams. That one came with a few migrations, so we'll run those. Okay, now the last thing that we're going to need is, of course, the admin, and that's what this video is all about. And so what I showed you with that admin dashboard interface, we can install that into the application with a simple command, Rails instrumental, you guessed it, admin. And that comes with some files that we need to overwrite. All of this is documented at instrumental.dev, and we're good to go. Now I'm going to walk through how the code is put together, but we are going to need to migrate that as well, because what that did was it added a Boolean field to the user table for admin. I'm going to show you how that works right now. So we basically have all of the core components that I'm going to need to show this system. So I'm going to sign up for my own account first. I'm going to put in bc@test.com, make a password, and sign up. Okay, I'm here on my home screen in my account. And you know what? Before I move forward, I'm going to add that content to this page just to make it clear like which account I'm actually viewing. Instead of that hello world, let's put this, which will show me welcome to the account, my current account name, and it tells me that this account is owned by the user and their username. Cool. Okay, so there we go. Now, remember how I showed you earlier that the admin link would be here in my user menu, but it's not showing up there. And also, if I try to go to the admin URL, it's going to say you are not authorized to access this page. That's because currently I am just a regular user. I'm not an admin user. So how do we make someone an admin user? Now, obviously, we don't want to put like a button in the application for any user to be able to make themselves an admin. That would be bad. So for this step, we will go straight into the database and just change that one flag. So I'm going to open up the database. So I could do this in the command line, of course, but I don't know. I'm more of a visual person, so I like Table Plus on the Mac for viewing the database. I'm going to go to my users table, and there's my one user that I've registered so far. When I installed the admin component into the project, it added a migration which adds this admin Boolean field. This is an SQLite table. I'm just going to change this from 0 to 1, basically changing it from false to true. I'm going to save that. I'm going to refresh. And so now when I go up here, now I have access to the admin. And I can get in here. I can now access all of the routes for the admin. I can do all the things in the admin, and I'm good to go. All right, so let's take a look at the code and see what's going on here. So we'll start with the routes. And when we generated the admin, we added these routes right here. And they are all, under admin. Let's go to the admin controller. Pretty straightforward. But one thing that you'll see right at the top, all of these actions are checking to authorize admin user. Let's take a look at that method down here. It's a private method, and we're checking to see, is the current user an admin, meaning admin is true, or are we currently impersonating? And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So if we're not, then we're going to redirect to the root path and say you are not allowed to access this page, obviously. So that's the first thing, really important. Next, we have users. Let's go into my admin. And this is simply the page where we list out the users. And the layout and all of the components that you see here in the admin dashboard, of course, use all the same UI components that come with Instrumental. Everything from the sidebar navigation to the listings, the data table here, and all of it. All these little toggles, all that stuff are standard components that come with Instrumental. We have the breadcrumbs navigation up here. So, you can use these things to build things on the public side of your application for your users to see. And the same things are used to build your admin dashboard. But there, you will notice that we have implemented this secondary color to sort of change the look and feel. Now, of course, you can customize everything that you install into your application. I like to have this like visually different color in the admin dashboard, which just makes it really clear to me and my team that, hey, you're in the admin side, like the back room of your application. The other thing is we also changed the logo from the standard logo in the application to one that just says admin. So if I go back to the app, it says demo app up here, and I can even have like a logo image there. And the color scheme is using these blues and everything. But when I go into the admin, we have green. So how is that actually happening? So if we look at the layout for admin, that's under views, layouts. We have our standard application layout, and then we have a separate layout called admin. So first of all, we are using a special layout for admin. It's separate from our application layout, which is used here. In the admin, we're using a layout called admin.html, and we can see that is down here in views, layouts, admin HTML. If I look at my admin controller, I'm not actually specifying admin layout. So you might be wondering, like, well, why is it not defaulting to application layout like most pages in a Rails application do before you specify a different layout? Well, that's because my admin controller is called admin, and that's the same as the name of the layout. So under views, layouts, admin.html. So that is how the instrumental component automatically designed and installed this system for your admin is it named it admin controller. It named the layout admin. If you happen to customize it and change it to something else, then you would just need to manually specify which layout to use. So if you look at like the sessions controller, I have a special layout for the login and the registration flows that I showed earlier. For that, we have a layout called authentication, which is a different word than sessions. So here we actually specify the layout. And in our invitations controller, where users can like invite other users, and then when they accept the application, the layout is a little bit different. We use a method called set layout, and we set that down here. So if we're accepting an invitation, we use the authentication layout, and otherwise we'll default to the application. But anyway, we're going back to our admin controller. We don't even need to set the layout because it's called admin. So let's look at our actual admin layout, which is very similar to any other sidebar layout that you would install using instrumental components. One change that we made is right up here. We just add this couple lines to change our primary color, which is normally the blue. So, normally the links are this like blue color. That's what we currently have as our primary color in our Tailwind CSS theme that we installed. That's another whole story. So we have like a primary color and a secondary color. So let me just step back for a minute. Another thing that comes with your installation of instrumental components is this area in a colors CSS file. This is where we can define the common colors that we use throughout our application. I like to make them primary, and we have a primary light and then secondary and a gray. So by default, when you install it, we're using Tailwind's sky color. That's this blue color that you see on these links. But we also have this secondary color, and that is Tailwind's emerald color. It's like a green color. So when we switch to the admin, basically all I'm doing, instead of changing all the individual CSS classes throughout the layout, all I'm doing is adding these few lines here, which basically just says, hey, when you're in the admin and we're using this layout, anytime we call the primary, which is normally the blue, let's make it the secondary, which is actually the green. So that's what allows us to use the same UI components that we use elsewhere in the app, but instead of whatever our primary color is, our primary color is going to be rendered as the secondary in this case. Instead of the blue, it's going to be green. There are a few other style tweaks that we make when we're in the admin. Like I said, we have the admin logo. We changed the sidebar color, but that's how that works. All right, impersonation. So I want to give a shout out to Chris Oliver from Go Rails. He put out a really great YouTube video shortly after Rails 8 authentication came out, showing how to modify the authentication controllers and models to allow for impersonation of users. And so when you install instrumental components, we automatically make those modifications for you. So I definitely recommend you check out Chris's video on that. He walks through exactly how it all works. But basically what we are doing is in the admin controller, we're adding a couple of actions. One is to impersonate the user, and one is to stop impersonating the user. And then the other thing, and Chris went into more detail on this, we want to go into the current controller. And instead of delegating to user, we add this impersonated user attribute. And then when we define the current user, we can either check for, are we impersonating a user, or is this just a normal user who is logged in? And then we have a separate method here to track like who is the actual true user. Again, there's a couple more details in there. We go into our controllers, into the authentication concerns. This is a file that is installed as part of the Rails 8 authentication generator, the core Rails 8. But we did make a few more modifications to this to allow for impersonating. So we've got a couple of helper methods here. We have some methods for checking whether we are currently impersonating, and a method to impersonate this user. When we terminate the session, when we like log out, we also want to stop impersonating, and we use these methods as well for this impersonation system. And then when we go into our admin, and we're looking at a single user. So if I go in here, I go to users. Now, you know what? I'm actually going to just log out for a second. I'm going to sign up a different user. Okay, so now there's a user who has just created an account. I'm going to sign out of that user and I'm going to log in again as myself. I'm going to go back to my admin. And now I have two users here. Here's the new user. And this user, since it's not myself, I can actually impersonate that user. So this button is managed through our page header component. Basically, that is creating a button link here. And that path is this impersonate user path. And all that's doing is it's hitting the admin controller and we're doing this, and then we're going to impersonate this user. Now, one last thing that I always like to add is that red thing in the bottom. So if I'm going to impersonate this user right now we are looking at the app as this other user, but I always want to make sure that I can visually know that I am impersonating someone, and I need an easy way to stop impersonating them. So that's where this little partial comes in. That's under impersonating HTML. And then we insert that in the head of the document here, right here. So if impersonating, we're going to render that. It is fixed position to the bottom left corner. And there we go. And then if we look at that file, it shows us who we are impersonating, impersonated user, showing us their name. And by the way, our user system can show a name, which would be their email address if they haven't set their name yet, or their first name and last name. So that's what shows here at the top. And then this button, stop impersonating, is right here. That's a delete method. We're going to hit the stop impersonating user action. And what that does is it hits the admin controller. We're going to do stop impersonating user. That will run our stop impersonating method. And then we want to redirect back into our admin, and we want to redirect back to viewing that particular user in our admin. So when I click that, there we go. I'm back into my admin and I'm viewing that user. Again, I can sort of inspect their account. I can see who else I need to look at, and off to the races. So that's how I handle admin dashboards. And as my app grows, like after I add my billing component and add other features, I can continue to add more features into my back room of my application, if you will. It's really, really helpful for not only for myself, but for my team, especially for customer support folks who need to log in and see what's going on with users. But they can't really get into the code because they're not as technical as me and the developers. So really, really useful component to have in basically every application, especially if you have users. I showed a lot of things here, including the authentication stuff. I have another whole video all about that. And I have another video that shows how I implement users and accounts. I invite you to check that one out next. It shows team invitations and how I design the models and all of that. So take a look at that one next. If you have any questions or requests for new videos, please leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.